The morning started like any other. I mean, it should have. It was always about routine for me. That military discipline, it sticks to you, even out here in the quiet decay of the suburbs. John, that's me, former Marine, now just John. Trying to patch things up, patch up a life that got pretty torn up. My old pickup truck, the trusty Ford, usually sat tight against the weathered picket fence in the backyard. Always. I'm particular about parking, even when there's no one else to impress. But this morning, something was off. Just a little. A hand's width, maybe more, where the front bumper should have kissed the rotten wood. I squinted, ran a hand over my bristly scalp. Look, I'm not crazy. I measured, not with a tape, but with my eye. It was moved. I chuckled a little, a dry, dismissive sound that didn't quite reach my ears. Getting old, I guess, I mumbled to myself. Must be parking like a drunk. I shook my head, walked around the back of the truck, checking the tires, the tailgate. Everything else seemed normal. So I figured maybe a strong gust of wind, though the air was dead still. Or maybe I was just tired. Honestly, it wasn't worth thinking about. That evening, I was holed up in the kitchen, half watching the local news. Not that there was much news anymore. Just a rehash of old stories, fading faces on a flickering screen, trying to keep a semblance of order. Then I heard it, a faint creaking from under the floorboards directly beneath my feet. I froze, my hand halfway to the remote. Mice, definitely mice, I thought. Old houses have mice. But the sound, it was wrong. Too slow for a mouse. Too deliberate. It had a kind of rhythm to it. A slow, heavy creak, creak, like something massive shifting its weight. I leaned forward, my ear inches from the worn linoleum. The sound stopped, just like that. Dead silence. I stayed there for what felt like a full minute, holding my breath. Nothing. My heart, it was thumping a bit faster than it should. Just a silly old house noise. I tried to shake it off, reached for the remote again, flicked through channels till I found some sports rerun. Just trying to distract myself. Then, from the TV speakers, a voice cut through the static, cold and flat. Not the commentator, not anyone I knew. A machine voice, hollow, empty. It said, "Hate is overheating the bulb. Be careful." I jumped, literally. My hand shot out, slapping the power button on the remote, plunging the room into darkness and silence. My breath caught in my throat. What the hell was that? Just interference, I told myself. Old TV, bad reception, happens. Or maybe I was just too tired. Yeah, that had to be it. Too much stress, too much quiet. My nerves were shot. I closed my eyes, trying to find some peace, some anchor. Emily, my wife. I pictured her, vivid as anything. That small patch of petunias in the back garden, the way the morning light caught her hair as she bent down, the happy hum she always made while watering them. It was my go-to memory, my safe place. I felt myself almost smiling, almost feeling her warmth. And then, right at the peak of that feeling, a whisper, clear as day, slipped into the memory. "I wish Peter, the neighbor, was here with us, too, you know." My eyes snapped open. The room was cold, damn cold, and the windows were all shut tight. I could feel the hairs on my arms standing up. I shivered, rubbed my temples. "Just a daydream," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. Must be. My own voice sounded alien within the quiet walls of my home.
My hands were shaking. I forced myself to get up, walked to the fridge, grabbed a beer. My mind still raced. Peter? Why Peter? He always kept to himself, never really talked to Emily. It was absurd. Morning came, dull and gray, at least inside my head. I needed fresh air. I needed to act normal. So I went outside, walked straight to the garden, hoping to clear my head. The drizzle, it had finally stopped. Sunlight was trying to break through the overcast sky, thin and watery. I stepped onto the porch, and then I saw it. On the third step, right where I always wiped my feet, a huntsman spider. And when I say huntsman, I mean a huntsman. This thing was the size of my hand. No, bigger. My whole hand spread flat. It sat there, completely still, its dark, beady eyes fixed on me. Not moving, just watching. A shiver, a real one this time, ran down my spine. My stomach lurched.
I backed up automatically, my pulse quickening. Look, I'm not usually squeamish, but this was different. Something about its stillness. It didn't scuttle, didn't flinch. It just sat there, like a carved ornament. I took a deep breath, forced myself to move. I wasn't going to let some spider freak me out. Not now. I found an old slipper by the door, thick-soled. I raised it, ready to bring it down. But something stopped me. A flicker of something in those black eyes. A knowing. I lowered the slipper, slowly. I'd try to push it off with the broom, less messy. I grabbed the broom from the shed, walked back. As gently as I could, I tried to nudge the spider with the bristles. It didn't move, not an inch. It was like trying to push a rock, a hand-sized rock made of chitin and hate. I pushed harder, grunting, putting my weight into it. Still nothing. The broom handle bent in my grip. I backed away, exhausted for no good reason. My breath was coming in short, ragged gasps. I stood there, staring. Then, slowly, excruciatingly slowly, one of its front legs moved. Just a small, deliberate twitch, like it was stretching an arm, not a leg, an arm, like it had a purpose. It wasn't a reflex, it was intentional. My blood ran cold. Just then, my neighbor, old Mr. Henderson, shuffled by on the sidewalk, walking his terrier. He waved, a cheerful, innocent sound in the quiet. "Nice day, isn't it, John? Warm sun out there." I spun my head around, looked up at the sky, then back at the spider, then back at the sky. A drizzle. There was a faint, almost imperceptible drizzle. Tiny, cold drops landing on my face, my bare arms. But the sun was trying to peek through, and Mr. Henderson was talking about warm sun. I felt the disconnect, a jolt of something I couldn't name. Only I felt the rain. How is this happening? I mumbled, my voice a rough, low whisper. No way. I ran inside, a frantic, scrambling retreat. My hands were numb, my whole body felt like it was coated in ice. My head pounded. I needed to call someone. Not a buddy, not even emergency services, at least not yet. The sheriff. Maybe he'd seen something. I grabbed the old corded landline from the kitchen counter. My fingers fumbled with the dial. Sheriff Miller. I knew the number by heart. Dialed it. Raised the receiver to my ear. Just static. Not normal static. This was a buzzing, a low, persistent hum, like a million cicadas trapped in the phone line, vibrating against my eardrum. It filled my head, drowning out everything else. I couldn't hear a dial tone, couldn't hear the line connect. Nothing but that goddamn buzz. I pressed the receiver tighter to my ear.
The buzzing seemed to swell, to grow louder, almost physical. I slammed the phone back onto its cradle. What the hell? I tried again. Same buzzing. I tried my cell phone. No signal. Just a blank screen. Then a message that read, "No service." I threw it across the room. My old dog, Charlie, a scruffy terrier mix I'd had for years, was curled up on his mat by the back door. He lifted his head, gave a low growl, a frustrated rumble in his chest, a deep, guttural sound that wasn't directed at me, but at something. I walked over, knelt down, tried to talk to him. "Charlie, buddy, you won't believe what's happening outside. The truck, the spider." He just kept growling, his eyes flicking from me to the back door, then back to me, almost pleading. Not with fear, not with confusion, with annoyance. Like he was saying, "Shut up, John, I don't want to hear it." It hit me then. He understood. He wasn't misunderstanding. He just didn't want to acknowledge it. Or maybe couldn't. I stumbled back to the window, the one overlooking Mr. Henderson's small vegetable patch. The light was still dull, oppressive, and there they were, a frantic swarm of sparrows. Dozens of them. They were circling, not landing, just circling, over and over, in a tight, never-ending spiral above the neat rows of spinach and tomatoes. A feathered tornado of pure avian panic. And from underneath the ground, from the very earth beneath his garden, I could hear it. A low, continuous hum. A deep, throbbing rumble that vibrated through the foundation of my house, through the soles of my shoes, up into my chest. It was the same sound I'd heard under the kitchen floor, but amplified, multiplied, like the whole earth was purring. My phone, my broken cell phone. I picked it up. The screen wasn't shattered, just dead.
I needed to write this down, to record it, to prove it. I opened the Notes app. My fingers were trembling, making it hard to type on the tiny virtual keyboard. I typed out color. Then I tried to type green. Nothing. The word didn't appear. No, that's not right. What appeared was Rennig. I stared at it. Rennig? What the hell was that? I erased it. Tried again. Green. This time it was Egrenny. I typed it over and over. Green, green, green. Each time a jumble of letters. Eargne, Arjane, Gayern. My heart hammered against my ribs. I couldn't form the word. It was right there, in my mind, a concept. The color of the grass, the leaves on the trees, but I couldn't name it. My tongue felt thick, useless. The word had been excised, wiped clean from my internal dictionary, from my very thoughts. I was alone, truly alone, isolated in my own house, my own head. My reality, the one I had so carefully tried to rebuild, wasn't just cracking. It was splintering into a million pieces. I walked into the living room, my legs feeling heavy, distant. My eyes fell on the old family photo on the mantelpiece. Emily, our wedding day. She looked so happy, so alive. I reached for it, my fingers tracing the outline of her face. I lifted the frame, bringing it closer. And as I thought of her, as I focused on that perfect, radiant smile, it changed. Just a fraction. The corner of her mouth seemed to stretch, widen, just a little. Not in a happy way, more like a grimace. And her eyes, those warm brown eyes I knew so well, they seemed to deepen, to darken, to go utterly, frighteningly black. A gasp tore from my throat. My hands clenched and the frame slipped. It hit the polished wooden floor with a sharp crack, the glass shattering.
I flinched, then quickly knelt, trying to gather the pieces. I had to save the picture. My fingers brushed against a shard of glass larger than the others. I tried to pick it up. It wouldn't budge. It was impossibly heavy, like it was bolted to the floor. I pressed down, tried to slide my fingers under it to pry it loose. Nothing. It was solid, unmovable. Then, from the other side, from underneath the glass, I saw it. A finger, slim, pale, almost translucent. It slowly, gently pushed the edge of the glass up from the floor. No sound, not a scraping, not a whisper, just movement, as if nothing was there. I recoiled, scrambling backward. My eyes, they were fixed on that finger. It held the glass, steady. I stood, my legs shaking, my entire body rigid. I pushed at the glass with my foot, put all my weight into it. It was like kicking a block of steel. I stopped. I couldn't breathe. My chest ached. The finger, it slowly withdrew. And the glass shard, that heavy, unmovable piece, it didn't just fall flat. No. It softly, slowly began to bend, like a thin piece of malleable wire. It curled upwards, then eased back down, straightened itself out, perfectly flat again, as if it were made of clay, as if the laws of physics themselves were recommendations. This wasn't just wrong. This was everything. Everything was wrong. I sank to my knees, staring at the floor, at the impossible glass. My mind raced, clawing for explanations. A trick of the light, tiredness, some kind of hallucination. But it felt so real, too real. My gaze fell on a tiny splinter of wood dislodged from the broken photo frame. It was brown, worn, just like the old picket fence outside. I picked it up, my fingers still trembling. On its surface, barely visible without squinting, were small, intricate carvings. Tiny lines, impossibly fine. At first, I thought it was just the grain of the wood, some natural pattern. But as I brought it closer, turning it in the weak light, I saw it. It was a pattern, complex, intertwined, like a miniature map. A network of intertwining, unending paths, roads that crossed over, flowed into each other, then branched out again. It struck me then, this wasn't just wood grain. This wasn't merely a pattern. This was architecture. An impossibly detailed, living blueprint. An anthill. A vast, sprawling ant colony mapped out with chilling precision. I looked down at the floor, then to the ground outside, beyond the shattered window pane. I could feel it then, the deep, continuous hum, the vibrations. No longer just a sound, but a physical presence, felt deep in my bones. And the carvings on the splinter? They weren't faded like the rest of the old wood. They were sharp.
Clear, brand new, unmarred by time. "This can't be an accident," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "This is a blueprint." The blueprint, that's what it was. A blueprint, not just wood grain. My mind had just kept looping back to that. A complex, intricate network carved into a tiny sliver of wood, like an ant colony. But new, so new. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at that piece of wood, at the shattered photo frame, at the impossible glass. My old home, it wasn't home anymore. It was a waiting room, a cage I hadn't realized I was in until the bars started to bend. I left after that, just walked out, didn't even pack much. A rifle, some ammo, a bug-out bag that had been gathering dust in the garage. Left Charlie, my dog, with a big bowl of food and water, hoping for the best. He just looked at me, a low growl in his chest, then went back to watching the back door. Annoyed. Still annoyed. I didn't blame him. The roads out of town were a mess. Abandoned cars, overturned buses, dust everywhere. It was worse than anything I'd seen in a combat zone. Messy, chaotic, empty. Somewhere on the highway, a couple days later, I found them. Not really found them, more like we converged. Sarah, a teacher, her face streaked with dirt, clutching a worn backpack. And Mark, a big guy, a plumber I think, always had a wrench shoved in his belt, now carrying a shotgun like it was an extension of his arm. We hooked up, naturally, shared what little we had, started moving east. East because, I don't know, east was a direction. We steered clear of the big cities at first, heard stories on the barely functional emergency bands, static-ridden whispers about things that grew from the ground, things that flew in the sky. Nightmares, really. So we stuck to the smaller towns. Though smaller didn't mean safer anymore. We were cutting through what used to be Miller's Creek, or what was left of it, maybe a week after I left my house. Dust, more dust, and that quiet. That deep, heavy quiet that presses down on your ears. A couple of buildings were still standing, mostly. One old electronic billboard, the kind that plays ads for everything from car insurance to vacation deals, was still flickering, like a last gasp. "Looks like all the electronics are breaking down too," Sarah said, her voice thin, almost swallowed by the dust. She pointed at the billboard. It was playing a loop for some beach resort from years ago. But the words, they were all jumbled. Paradise AWAYS WITHUS. It kept trying to correct itself, then just gave up, flashing scrambled letters like a broken code. A few letters were upside down. The colors kept shifting, from vibrant blues and yellows to this sickly green and purple. Like a child had gotten hold of the controls and just mashed the buttons. Or something else had. Mark just grunted, his thumb stroking the shotgun stock. "Everything's broken, Sarah. Everything." We decided to push through to the main highway, see if we could make better time. It was a long, straight stretch of road, cracked and overgrown now, but still mostly clear of major debris. We walked for what felt like hours, the sun beating down on us. Or what used to be the sun. It was hazy, kind of a yellowish gray. Then it hit me. A shadow. A moving shadow, not from a cloud. I looked up. It was worse than a cloud. Thousands of them. Hornets. Not regular hornets. These things were wrong. Each one the size of a pigeon, maybe bigger. They were flying in formation, a tight, dark mass, blocking out the sun like a living, buzzing shroud. The air, which had been warm, suddenly dropped. I mean, dropped hard. A cold, biting wind, not a natural wind, just emanated from them. It felt ancient, like the cold from something that shouldn't exist. This wasn't winter, this was deep summer. But my skin, it prickled with an unnatural chill that seeped into my bones. I felt it in my head, too, a weird prickling behind my eyes. And then a thought, unbidden, from out of nowhere. Those glass-eyed dolls my grandmother used to have. I hated them. They just sat there, staring, those blank, empty eyes. Even as a kid, I'd always felt like they were watching, judging. Why the hell was I thinking about that now? Just as the thought formed, the billboard we'd passed earlier, way down the road, flickered again. Not just the jumbled words. For a split second, barely a blink, an image. A still, blurred image of those dolls.
Their vacant, glass eyes staring out. Then it was gone, back to the scrambled text. I stopped dead. My blood, it went cold, colder than the air around me. This wasn't coincidence, no way, not after what happened at my house. I looked down at the cracked asphalt beneath my feet. I knelt, needing to touch something real, tangible. The pavement was icy, literally, like it had been sitting in a freezer. Hours of summer sun, and it was colder than a winter morning. It made no sense. Then I heard it again, a faint, almost musical clinking. It was a bamboo wind chime from a house maybe 100 yards away, mostly collapsed. A soft, gentle sound. Then it stopped. But the sound, it didn't stop. It kept going, in my head, right beside my ear. A soft, irregular clink. Clink. "They see me," I whispered, my mouth dry as dust. My voice was a rough rasp. "They hear me." A cold pressure pressed against my eardrums, made them buzz. My hearing went momentarily dull, then sharpened, picking out the faintest rustle of leaves, the distant drone of the hornets still overhead. I felt exposed, like my skull was made of glass and everything inside was on display. I looked up. Sarah was staring at me, her brow furrowed. She walked closer, her steps crunching on the gravel. "Can you please stop that clanging, John?" she said, her voice tight, a little annoyed. "It's bothering me and everyone else." I just stared at her. Clanging? I hadn't made a sound, not with my hands. My hands were still on the icy pavement. But the wind chime, it was still clinking, in my head. And she heard it. She heard my thoughts. Or something within me was projecting it. No, that wasn't right. That was too much. We kept moving, had to. The pressure wasn't letting up. Eventually, we found ourselves in a neighborhood that looked like it had been spun from a nightmare. Giant webs everywhere. They covered the houses, draped across telephone poles, hung like vast, shimmering death traps between every tree. Thicker than any rope, almost translucent in the murky light. They pulsed faintly, like something alive. "Okay," Mark said, his voice low, his shotgun held ready. This is new." From the top of what used to be a 13-story apartment building, I saw it. Moving, slowly. A spider. Not just big, not just huge. This thing was the size of a city bus. Its multiple legs, thin as utility poles, extended and contracted with sickening grace, pulling it out from between the broken windows. Its 8 eyes, black and polished like obsidian marbles, seemed to catch the faint light, reflecting it back in a way that made my stomach churn. It didn't scuttle. It moved with this terrifying, deliberate slowness, like it knew it had all the time in the world, like we were utterly insignificant. "Get in there," I yelled, pushing Sarah towards an abandoned grocery store. "Now!" We stumbled inside, tripping over discarded cans and broken shelves. The place was dark, heavy with the smell of mold and something else, something chemical, like ozone and dried blood. "Lights," Sarah gasped, fumbling for a switch. I found the main panel, slammed the lever up. The fluorescent lights flickered, buzzing, then flared. The room was bathed in a harsh, cold glow. But instead of pushing back the darkness, it seemed to deepen it. The shadows in the corners became long, inky things, stretching out, reaching. And outside, on the street, I could swear the webs, those thick, glistening ropes, seemed to tense, to grow. Tentacles of silk, thin at first, then thickening, started snaking through the shattered windows, through cracks in the walls, like the store itself was being absorbed. I moved to the entrance, tried to pull the rolling metal gate down,
lock us in. I put my weight into it. Nothing. The thing was heavy before, but now it was like trying to move a solid slab of steel. My muscles burned, my hands slipped. I grunted, pushed harder, gritting my teeth. It wouldn't budge, not an inch. "John, what's wrong?" Sarah asked, her voice tight with panic. I pulled, then pushed, then slumped back against the counter, breathing hard, my chest aching. Exhausted for no reason. My arms felt like jelly, like I'd been fighting a ghost. Then I saw it. A single strand of web. Thin, almost invisible in the fluorescent glare. It slipped through the crack where the metal gate met the doorframe, right where the bolt should have locked. It moved with an impossible, fluid grace.